Hi, I'm Dr. Yopp, an advanced grief recovery method specialist certified by the Grief Recovery Institute. Let's have a quick chat about grief. In today's episode of Takeaways About Grief, we will chat about some of the different types of losses. And as always, I'm sharing information from this life-changing resource, the Grief Recovery Handbook. So let's get started today with revisiting the definitions of grief that you will find in the Grief Recovery Handbook. Number one, grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss of any kind. Secondly, grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. In other words, your loss of familiar pattern of behavior. Now, to most people, the most obvious losses are death and divorce. I think it's safe to say. However, takeaway number one, according to the Grief Recovery Institute, there are more than 40 life events we experience that can produce feelings of grief. Over 40. Let's just list a few of those over 40 types of losses. I'll start with one with which I have over 20 years of personal experience, moving. As the wife of a Navy surface warfare officer, I moved in and out of the U.S. I moved from state to state inside the U.S. every 18 months to 2 years for over 20 years. And every single time I moved, I had conflicting feelings. There was always excitement about the opportunity to live in a different country, coupled with sadness about moving away from friendships I had established where I currently lived, and a dash of uncertainty about what life would be like in a new country or a new state. All these feelings were results of a change in my familiar pattern of behavior. Meaning what? Meaning moving is a grief experience. And had I not been able to recognize it as such, the constant moving from place to place could have, and more likely than not would have, had a lifelong cumulative negative impact on my life. Briefly, here are a few other types of losses. Loss of relationship. And I'm referring here to things like a breakup with someone you loved, or maybe an estrangement between father and daughter, or the relationship between you and your best friend is no longer close as it once was. A decrease in pay or financial loss, loss of health. It is imperative to learn to grieve the pre-diagnosis you, who you were before being diagnosed with cancer or a brain tumor or a stroke. Job loss. And though this one does go back to loss due to death, pet loss is a major grief experience. Takeaway number two. Our grief experiences also include intangible losses. So let's list a few of those intangible losses. Loss of trust caused from things like molestation as a child. Loss of safety caused from things like physical abuse, or from feeling like the person who was supposed to protect you did not keep you from the hands of the person who sexually abused you. Loss of respect, loss of hope, loss of faith in God. You may have prayed like you were taught to pray all your life, asking God to do something, but it did not happen. And you may have found yourself trusting God less. The final takeaway for today is that whether they are tangible or intangible losses, if your grief is left unresolved, that incompleteness can have a very real and lifelong negative impact on your capacity for happiness. So allow me the opportunity to guide you to grief recovery. For more information or to register online for private grief recovery sessions, text me at 813-324-4474.